Hello and welcome back. We are live streaming Andromeda 6 on chapter 3 now. Yeah, so basically we found ourselves waking up on this ship in space, and all we can remember about ourselves is our name. And we recognize if we're human or Kitalphan or Tilaari. She's Kitalphan and she's Tilaari. He's also Kitalphan, you can tell by the neck, but if I remember correctly, he's only Kitalphan. We'll find that out shortly. And, so chapter 3, rebooting. Oh, and they them pronouns, and our name is Tony. Your Highness. Tony. What? What is happening? Your Highness? Bex. He smiles when I turn, and something in my stomach feels lighter. It's been a year since we first met. A year and 1 day and 22 hours, to be precise. But who's counting? And still I remember that day like it was only yesterday. All ready for the masquerade? With a small nod, I get into my outfit, silently gauging his reaction. I'd had one of the servants pick it out for me earlier, a young human who seemed to know a thing or two about the latest fashion. Bex nods in approval as he takes in my appearance, and I turn a little to let him get a glimpse of the entire thing. It isn't often I have an excuse to wear anything so fine. Being the youngest of the Pegasi children, I'm often confined to one section of the palace. I'm never invited to any of the royal functions, save the odd wedding or funeral. Okay, so we just got a lot of information thrown at us, so I'm sure a lot of people figured out what was going on even before this moment. I remember when I first played, when Ipo mentioned that the youngest Pegasi hadn't been found, I was like, that's me. I'm the youngest Pegasi. And I was right. I did not expect Vex, though. So, being a writer, I do figure out some twists, but that doesn't prepare me for all of them. My gaze settles on him, nerves getting the best of me now that we are ready to leave, though he only smiles at me reassuringly. He's the only person who smiles at me in this place, the only one who even cares about my happiness. Except for, do you really think this is a good idea? What if someone recognizes me? One corner of his mouth tilts into that knowing smirk that I've come to look forward to every day. One that makes it seem like he has a secret, something he wouldn't tell anyone but me. That's what the mask is for. Taking a lacquered mask from my hands, he steps slowly behind me, positioning it in front of my eyes and tying it by the ribbons behind my head. I bite down on my lip, dread worming its way down to my bones. He has as much to lose if we get caught as I do. Perhaps even more. My hands shake at my sides, and Vex puts a reassuring hand on my shoulder to keep me still. We snuck out of the past yesterday and into the city to visit that cafe you love so much, and still you're afraid of a little masquerade ball? I tilt my head slightly to make a face at him, wrinkling my nose to show that it's hardly the same thing. Yes, the city, not right under my parents' noses for all to see. It's then that Beck steps in front of me, his box-like face and sharp eyes facing me head-on, and a soft smile gracing his lips. Nothing bad will happen to you, Tony. I promise. Okay, so of course we're going to flirt, because why not? I forgot to get my handy dice out. Luckily they're right by the desk. Okay, so odd number first action, even number second third action. 3. I'm holding you to that promise, Lieutenant Seraph, and if you break it, terrible things will happen. Bex raises an eyebrow at me, that half-cocked smirk playing on his lips. Oh, not that there's any chance of that happening, but what would these terrible things be, exactly? I bite down on my lower lip to keep my grin from spreading, though he sees straight through me anyway. I simply won't spend time with you anymore. That has him laughing, and when he steps forward to flick me on the tip of my nose, I can't help but pout. as if you could keep me away. He reaches out through the wrinkle on my outfit, his fingers so gentle when he touches me. I'll be by your side the entire time. I know he's telling the truth, and I trust him so much that the nerves start to settle, and I manage a small smile of my own. As a member of the Royal Guard, Beck Seraph has sworn to protect my life against any danger that may befall me. But there's more than that. He isn't just a guard. He's my friend. My only friend. They hold his arm out. I take it with renewed confidence, letting him lead me towards the secret passage off to the side. This passage comes out on the other side of the palace, just beside the large oil painting of my grandfather and the entrance to the library. There are many passages like this, and Bex and I have explored them all. I know I should feel guilty about this, disobeying a direct order from my parents to keep to the confines of the palace's south wing, and instead running wild and unseen to the very depths of the palace. And with a member of the Royal Guard, no less. But at least they're safe with him, right? We're almost there. Bex squeezes my arm gently as we navigate through the dim passageway, and I can tell that he's excited, which calms me somewhat. We step out from the hole in the wall, taking care to remain unseen, to prepare ourselves for the masquerade that awaits us. Tony. The memory ends suddenly, cut short by the sound of my name, spoken by a familiar voice, a voice from my past. Bex? My head feels heavy, and I raise a hand to my scalp, pushing against the throb that swells beneath my skull. I remember a little. Bits and pieces become clearer the more I think about it, but there's only one thing I know for sure. Bex is here, and I remember him. Tony, Your Highness, what are you doing here? The question stuns me for a moment, taking me off guard, as memory after memory of the man in front of me rushed to the surface of my mind, piecing together like a glass unbroken. Some memories remain blurred, mere fragments needing a little more time to come into focus. But others swim to the surface, desperate for air while they leave me breathless, struggling to stay afloat. You left. You left me. Emotions hit me one after the other, relentless in their assault. Fear, confusion, anger. Beck, how could you? I meet the eyes of my old friend, expecting to find the kind, emerald green gaze I had grown used to, but instead, I see nothing. Nothing but anger, bitterness, and spite. Dread snakes through my veins. Something is wrong. Something is different, and I can't quite figure out what. I thought you were dead. You were supposed to be... Beck stops, the muscles shuddering in his jaw as it tightens and he sets his unfeeling gaze on me. How did you escape? Escape? Because I escaped the attack on the palace. I remember now what truly happened. I remember my brother's wedding, how we were all at the palace that night, the perfect time for an enemy to strike. I left the reception early, planning on leaving the city to search for Vex, and now here he is, standing right in front of me. So much has happened since I last saw you. I was justified by a crew of mercenaries. After being injured on Goldus, my memory of it was gone until now. He seems to have sparked something in my mind. You remembered because of me? Look at his face. Okay, let's go back and then forward, and you can see that change. I nod, finding it increasingly difficult to see those cold, cold eyes of his, ones that were once filled with such warmth. What else do you remember? I remember, obviously we're going with the second option, no question. We were inseparable. My throat tightens, and I know what I have to say. I have to tell him the truth, even if it is too late. You looked at me in a way that no one else ever had, and I liked the way that made me feel. He takes a step closer, hand raised as he brushes the knuckle over the side of my face so gently. How did it make you feel? Like I was yours and you were mine, like nothing could stop us from living the life we dreamed of, from exploring all the places we said we would. His mouth twitches, as if holding himself back from something he wants to say. I remember what happened that day, the day of the attack. You left. Weeks went by and no one would tell me why or where you had gone. My chest caved at the memories of being told to sit up, shut up, and do my duty, all while my only friend in the whole world was gone. I ran away. I was desperate for answers. I came looking for you, though. I didn't make it very far before, when the last word, my voice cracks, and I will the tears that threaten to still to stay where they are. Why did you leave? Jack stares me down, his eyes cold and unflinching, and I don't understand any of it. I wasn't your friend. I didn't care about you, not even when they told me they were storming the palace and exterminating the royal line. You what? I was using you, Tony. You laughed with a bitter sound devoid of any warmth. You were so naive, and you had no idea. All you wanted was a friend. I don't believe you. We were friends. You would think that, wouldn't you, you spoiled little brat? What would you have me tell you, Your Highness? You want me to say I missed you, that I thought of you every day and wondered if you'd ever get to see those places we talked about? Wondered if someone better would take you there? I didn't. I didn't miss you. I didn't think of you, even for a second. You lying liar. Okay. Alright. So we're gonna use a dice. I'm gonna pull out my D6 here. Okay, so 1 or 4, you're lying. 2 or 5, say nothing. 3 or 6, slap him. 5. Something shatters inside me, some remnant of the past that I rushed back to the surface, only to crumble like dust in my hands. All those times you would sneak out of the house just to get away, the passages you showed me, that was exactly what I needed to know. And when I took that information to Zovek, I knew exactly where and how to strike. No, it can't be true. If it is, that means it's my fault. If you know what's good for you, you'll stay far away from the Andromeda Six and her crew. They know too much, far too much, and they'll be dealt with soon enough. Forget who you were, Tony. That person doesn't exist anymore. If you're lucky, you'll never see me again. Tenacity, stopping for the briefest of moments to say from over his shoulder, I'm not sorry for what happened. I am sorry for Nerissa. She might have made a good queen, but I couldn't wait long enough to find out. Back into the shadows, one foot behind the other, and I can't stop myself from reaching for him. I can't leave. Not now. I need to know more. Nerissa. Something sharp stabs through my chest. A pain so fierce I could barely keep myself on my feet. Nerissa, my eldest sister, and heir to the Bukasi throne. Vex was the only one who ever smiled at me, except for Nerissa. Tony! Footsteps echo through the darkness, but my mind has trouble processing his presence. The presence. Nerissa, she was going to be queen. She hated our father, but she loved me, and now she's gone. Ugh, okay. You're a little too into this here. You're a little teary-eyed. I was like, Tony, what the hell are you doing out here? Didn't I tell you to stay in the club? The captain's voice rumbles right past me. Are you even listening to me? Stop, Calderon. Fast shoulders past the captain, but I see nothing but shadows and shapes dancing behind the tears filling my eyes. Can't you see they're upset? Calderon has a breath while cold metal fingers take me by the arm and help me stay upright. Are you hurt? I shake my head, unable to speak, and Bash lets out a relieved breath. Let's take them back to the ship. This is the kind of place we should hang about. Damon, do a sweep of the area. Make sure there's nothing out of the ordinary. I don't see it when Damon sinks it back into the shadows, as quiet as a mist. I feel when Bash gently takes me by the arm and guides me in the direction of the ship, Calderon walking up ahead of us. Bash leads me through the crowded streets of the city, and I'm glad for it, because my mind is elsewhere, lost in memories of the past. Before I know it, we're in front of the A6, ascending the loading ramp to the docks. Excuse me. 3 heads snap up when we enter, and immediately Riona is on her feet and coming towards us. What happened? I'm not sure exactly. Bash moves away to give me space, so all 5 of them continue to look at me, waiting for answers, until Calderon cuts in. You shouldn't have left the club. You have no idea how dangerous the city can be for someone alone. I'm sorry, I didn't... Didn't think? Yeah, that seems to happen a lot, doesn't it? Cut it out, Calderon. The last thing we need right now is your bad temper. Calderon opens his mouth to speak, but stops himself at the sight of Riona's glare. Fine. Throwing his arms up in frustration, he backs off and leans against the far wall, a sour expression twisting his features. Riona comes over, putting a hand on Bash's arm to make sure he's all right before turning to me. Are you okay? We didn't come back. I was so worried about you. She lowers her voice and leans closer, glancing at Calderon before fixing her bright yellow eyes on me. He may have said it the wrong way, but he's right. Nos Vega is a dangerous place. Okay, we're not going to roll the dice on this one. I'm sorry I just disappeared. I should have said something. Think back on meeting Bex in that alleyway, on the things he had said to me. I'd been such a fool to think that I might have meant something to him. Shaking my head to clear the thought, I decided it's best not to dwell on it now, especially not with so many eyes on me. I didn't mean to worry you. I'm just glad you're all right. I smiled at Riona gratefully. It's nice to have someone worry about me for once. I've never had many people like that in my life before. I take in a lungful of air, steadying my breath as I scan the room. One look at the pilot, sitting with her arm cradled against her stomach, brings the memory of the night crashing back on me in a wave of guilt. Aya, is your hand all right? Ayame grins at me as chipper as ever. I imagine it'd take a lot more than a broken hand to slow this girl down. A little sore, but it'll be fine by morning. Doc's amazing at her job, and having all the right equipment on the ship doesn't hurt either. I smile at her in return, glad to know she's okay, even with my failure to bring back the ice for her hand. I feel terrible that I abandoned her, after everything she's done to make me feel welcome with the crew. I can only hope that the truth of who I really am won't change anything between us. Damon! When I follow Riona's gaze, it's to see Damon entering the bridge, fresh scarlet bread slathered over his face and the front of his clothes. What happened? Brenna rushes forward to help Damon, who simply holds a bloody, gloved hand up in front of him to stop her. We were followed. The blood isn't mine. God damn it. My gaze darts between the captain and second in command, as does the rest of the crew. Followed? How? Damon shrugs, his cold eyes pinned on Calderon in a way that sends a shiver down my spine. Ask the commander over there. Surely he knows how a guard ship is capable of finding us. A collective murmur goes through the room, and I swallow around the lump in my throat. More concerning than the fact of being followed is the splattering of blood on Damon's clothes. The blood couldn't have come from Bex, could it? Starship? What's going on? They must have put a tracker on us. Calderon's voice is quiet, and I get the impression that, more than anything, he's angry at himself. Damon shakes his head and scoffs. You didn't think to check? I was a little preoccupied with a great bloody hole in my ship and the stray that Jim brought aboard. Again, not going to roll the dice on this one. Annoyance surges through me at the captain's casual dismissal, and my eyes narrow darkly on him. You know that I'm still here, right? Calderon gives me a heated look. 13 steps into my defense. Tony is right. There's no need for that. I'm the one who made the decision to bring them on board, so if you want to be mad at someone, let it be me. I'm not mad at anyone. I'm just... A growl clears from Calderon's throat as he kicks over a stack of metal boxes, completely losing his cool. How did things get so fucked up? Things were always fucked up, Cal. We just never learned how to deal with it. Is that the truth? The captain raised a dismissive hand at us all before pinching the bridge of his nose and taking in a deep breath to calm himself. What's done is done. We'll check in with Alpha about getting a CD. The cloaking device isn't going to do shit if they already know we're here. And how the hell do you expect to get the money for that anyway? Flash helps Damon find an old rag, leaving him to wipe the blood from his face and clothes while the captain growls at him. We always get the money, Damon. We're mercenaries, unless you've managed to forget. You know just as well as I do that we don't have the time for that. What else do you propose we do? Anya gives him a helpless shrug, her glare burning straight through him, and I took the opportunity to speak up before Calderon can arrange anyone further. There might be another way. 6 pairs of eyes fall on me, and I hesitate. It's not ideal, what I'm about to propose, but I value our lives far more than some old trinket. Well, if you have an idea, then spit it out. Taking in a deep, shaky breath, I meet his eyes. We can sell my music box. It's made from Kitalphan, right? Surely it's enough to buy the part you need, and then some. No, absolutely not, Tony. You can't just sell out the only link you have to your past. I look at no one but the captain, gauging his response. Finally, upon making a decision, he lets out a sigh. I agree. It's not something that any of us would ask you to do. You're not asking and offering. And besides, it's not my only link to the past. June steps forward, his eyebrows tipping in clear confusion. What do you mean? Okay. Ooh, this one is, we're going to roll the dice here. So, odd number we tell them about Vex, even number we don't. And I'm rolling a d4. 4. Ooh, we're not going to tell them about Vex. Ooh. The reason I really left the club was because I started remembering more about my past. I needed to find a quieter space to process it. What did you remember? There was a reason that the body of the youngest royal wasn't found after the coup. It's because they weren't in the palace when it happened. Calderon swears under his breath, and when his eyes lock on mine, I know he's the only one who's figured out what I'm trying to say. Go on, tell them. With a deep breath, I composed myself, taking the opportunity to look between the crew before things between us had changed forever. My name is Tony Pegasi, and I'm the youngest child of King Fenris and the Lunar Queen, Nicole. Dun, dun, dun. So let's just enjoy this CG for a moment, all the different reactions. I like that that each of them is different, that they're not all the same, that they express their surprise differently. The faces in front of me are a mix of horror, confusion, and anger, and my stomach drops, knowing the weight of the bomb I've dropped on every single one of them. Shit! Well, this changes things. This changes everything. Damon is the one who approaches first, the hard side of his gaze, a perfect contradiction to the grin that tilts his lips. He studies me for a moment, seeing me through new eyes, before he turns back to the crew. Don't you see? If we turn over the little royal to Zovak, it could be just enough to wipe his bounty on us from the record. I do nothing but stare at him in disbelief, my heart pounding in my ears like a drum. What did he just say? At least 2 shouts of outrage come from the group, but Damon only smiles wider, his teeth glinting under the fluorescent lights. You've gone too far, Damon. Tony is one of us. We're not just going to hand them over to their family's murderer. Agreed, and I will kick your ass if another word of it comes out of your mouth. My eyes catch June's for the briefest moment, but he looks away just as quickly, fixing Damon with a hard stare. Damon snorts at eyes, but rolling his eyes, as if he couldn't care less. Then he steps toward the captain, his face blocked from my view, and his voice low, calculated. Cal, I know you agree with me on this. Calvin looks past Damon, those cold eyes fixing me to the spot, so I hire myself and stand my ground. And then he shakes his head at his second command, his voice rough, leaving no room for debate. It's not an option. Damon clicks his tongue in disappointment and backs off, hands held in front of him in defeat. All right, have it your way, but don't go crucifying me for saying what you're all thinking. He slinks away like an angry cat, every pair of eyes on him as if he might snatch me anyway, till he disappears up the stairs and out of sight. Once gone, Calvin lets out a tired sigh. I think we should call it a night. It's been a long day, and there's much we'll need to discuss tomorrow. Aya gives me an encouraging smile before heading off with the others, and I feel somewhat reassured. I want to speak to her about all of this more than anything, but I have to agree with Calvin that it's best to wait until tomorrow. Tony, I need to speak with you. There it is. Okay. With a nod, I followed the captain up to the bridge, falling behind and losing myself in my thoughts. We walk in silence, but I don't mind it. My head is reeling, and I have to mentally prepare myself for the conversation to come. When Caldwell stops, he turns to face me, but the anger is drained from him. Instead, he seems concerned, an emotion I'm not used to seeing on him. Sorry, making this myself. How are you feeling? He's both relieved and takes me off guard at the same time, and with the way he's looking at me, I know that things have changed. Things haven't always been easy between the captain and I, but despite that, I'm glad he asked, and he has stood up for me against Damon after all. Okay, so handy dandy dice, 1 or 4 emotional, 2 or 5 aloof, 3 or 6 strong. And this is going to affect our reactions in the future, but I think it's more of a flavor thing. We'll see. 3 strong. I'll just have to use the correct mouse. If Zovac finds out I'm alive, there will be hell to pay. I think back to Vex and learning the truth as I'm working for Zovac. How long will it take for him to contact his master and reveal where I am? I need a plan. Something to keep him off my trail until I can figure out what I need to do next. Unfortunately, he's out for all of us, but fortunately for you, the CD will do the trick. For now, at least. Alright, so that's the plan then. Get the CD. Calderon drops his head, but I now a long breath before he looks at me again, his face anguished. I owe you an apology. He drags his thumb across his bottom lip, and I can see this isn't easy for him. I'm sorry for what I said that first day you came aboard. You don't have to. No, I do. The captain fixes me with a hard stare, and I close my mouth, content to listen. I have to say it. I had no excuse for how I acted. I just need you to know that I'm sorry for all of it. Okay, I'm not even going to roll the dice for which one I want to do because I know exactly which one I want to do. I silently step forward, slipping my arms around him and feeling the strength of his body against mine. He freezes for a moment before relaxing into my embrace and returning the gesture. I'm glad that he doesn't back away, even after finding out the truth of who I am. I couldn't bear it if he did. I could see a little more clearly through the captain's hard exterior. He was protecting his crew, plain and simple. I understand that he didn't trust me, but I hope that he's beginning to now. When we pull apart, we don't let go of each other completely, and as our eyes lock, my throat tightens. Calderon smiles, but his face drops as soon as some hidden memory surfaces, and he hesitates a moment before speaking again. I knew your brother, Prince Soren. We trained for the guard together, and we were friends for a time, before we were dispatched to different districts. I freeze, letting the words sink in. I had no idea the two of them even knew each other. And now that I know, I can't tell how it makes me feel. He was a good man. He didn't deserve what happened to him. None of your family did. It was his wedding, the night of the attack. I remember it now. My voice shakes when I speak, the past singing over me like a thunderclap, ready to explode. We weren't close, but I never wanted this. I never wanted to see any of them get hurt like this. My breath sticks in my throat, and for a moment I have trouble getting air to the lungs that squeeze and tighten in my chest. People hated my father. Does that mean he deserved to die? I shake my head. That's not what I meant at all, but I certainly don't wonder why people wanted him gone. I heard what the people said when I sneaked into the city. They said he was narcissistic, that he was leaving the people to suffer while the family drank from golden goblets and ate off of silver plates. My brothers and sisters were content to live a life of privilege, either too ignorant or scared to do anything else. But Nerissa, the heir to the throne, she loved the people. She tried to change our father's mind on so many things, but he would never listen. And I felt so powerless. I didn't know what to do, so I did nothing. I'm just as bad as he was. No, wanting to do something about it, that's the first step. And again, not going to roll the dice. Well, in that case, it was the only step I ever made. I never had a chance to do more. Calvin gives me what might be considered a soft look, if anything about him was soft at all. When I graduated from my training in the Guard, I was top of my squadron. I could have picked any posting I wanted, but I chose to be stationed in the worst sector of the Bronze District. Do you know why? I shake my head. From what Damon had insinuated in the bar, I wasn't aware Calderon had a choice as to where he was stationed. Because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted the people to know that there was still someone who gave a shit about them, who would fight for them. I hide my frown, hesitating before asking the question that's poised on my lips. It's one that seems important. Because that's where you were from? His blue eyes go dark, but eventually he nods, looking away and laying out a short, sharp breath. My mom gave me everything I ever wanted but my birth parents. I couldn't stop myself from wondering if it was their circumstances that prevented them from keeping me. Okay, so we're getting a little more here about Calderon's situation. He was adopted by a pair of wealthy women and raised to go into politics, but he became a guard instead. And he chose the Bronze District because he couldn't forget that his parents gave him up for adoption. And he had to wonder at why that was. So that's really interesting. He's quiet for a moment, but then he says with a shrug, or maybe they just didn't want me. Who knows? Well, even if his birth parents didn't want him, his mothers wanted him. So that's one of the nice things about being adopted. You know that you are wanted. When it's your birth family, sometimes there's that doubt. But I know with my family, all of us kids were definitely adopted, wanted. Even if it made things tight at times, my parents have never made any of us feel like they didn't want us. I know my parents love me. And I know not everyone can say that. So for the people who aren't sure, I hope that there is someone in your life who does make you feel loved and wanted, even if it's not your birth parents. I'm sure they did. Glances sidelong at me, putting the wall back in place, piece by piece. Work is just rebuilding it completely. I ask another question. Why were you exiled? Calderon's throat bobs, his face darkening as he closes himself off more and more. I don't want to talk about that. I won't let him shut me out again. Not this time. Calderon, please tell me. He stops to study me, as if deciding how much he wants me to know. I see the moment he keeps in, when a breath of air leaves him and his shoulders bump in defeat. I wasn't exiled initially. I was awaiting my execution. You what? Accused of the murder of Lord Oberon, the king's uncle and head of the Crown Council. My eyes widen on the man in front of me, hardly believing what I'm hearing. I remember Lord Oberon's death. I remember attending his funeral with the rest of my family, and how my father had taken the loss particularly hard. They said his murderer was caught and being brought to justice. Back then, I didn't care to know more. I never liked my father's uncle. He was mean and cruel and was hated by the people almost as much as the king himself. So, I would have had a good reason to want him dead. But Calderon, it can't be true. You murdered him? He gives me a look, offended that I have to even ask the question, and immediately I feel guilty for doing so. No, it was a setup. He doesn't reply for a while, pacing instead towards the panel on the far wall and scanning the controls. When he does speak, his voice is low, clearly audible above the beeps and words of the bridge. I cared about those people in the Bronze District, but I was the only one. When I started pushing for change, others saw that as a problem. I was betrayed by those closest to me and used as a pawn in just Zobek's scheme to get rid of the biggest opposition to his claim and infiltrate the Crown Council from the inside. You knew Zobek? No, not until Aya busted me out of that prison and told me who was really behind everything I was accused of. Couldn't you have told someone? Heard your name? Stovak already had the council in the palm of his hand. Who would have believed me? I swallowed hard, knowing that what he says makes sense, but hating the injustice of it anyway. I had a lot of time to think while I was waiting for my death, a lot of time to wonder where things all went wrong. And what conclusion did you come to? That I trusted the wrong people, and that I wouldn't make the same mistake again. So that explains his attitude towards you, towards Claire. Suddenly the captain's distrust makes a lot of sense to me. He was hurt, plain and simple, and all he's trying to do is make sure it doesn't happen again. Who betrayed you? I think we've spoken about it enough. I nod. He had already told me so much more than I ever thought he would. What about the bounty then? What's the deal there? It's simple, really. When Stovak found out I'd escaped and assembled a crew, he put up a hit on the lot of us. His followers see him as their champion, the protagonist in their little story, banishing the evil king and taking the throne as his own. But the people, the ones who have suffered long and hard enough, see him for what he truly is, a tyrant, pushing those on the lowest rung down further still and calling it salvation. It takes only a spark to start the flames of revolution, as Stovak well knows. That's why he wants us gone. So you'll fight him? I'll do whatever I can to pull him from the throne when the time comes. We have to do something, but we're only 6 against an entire army. 7. Would you fight with us, Your Highness? Okay, another rolling the dice again. And we're going with the first option, even we're going with the second option. It's a 2. I'm afraid I haven't had any real training. I'm not sure how much help I'll be when it comes down to the wire. Once you're with us, that's all that matters. If I recall correctly, you've already secured your place in the crew. It's yours for as long as you want it. I think of the second in command, who might have a different view on the matter. Damon is under my command as long as he's on this ship. I can't make excuses for his behavior. The things he's had to do to survive are brutal. He's become ruthless because of it. It doesn't surprise me that was his first instinct. I'm not about to make Stovak's job any easier for him, and I know the crew would agree with me on that. All of them. I don't say it out loud, but I hope he's right. A sound goes off on the device around his wrist, and with a movement of his arm, he brings up the holoscreen and scans the words in front of him. Rihanna is waiting for you in the infirmary. She wants to do a checkup. I'm okay. She doesn't have to worry. He gives me a look, and I know at once that I'm fighting a losing battle. She will anyway. Best to put her mind at ease, or she'll be on both our backs about it. I start to leave, but before I make it much further, he calls out to me one last time. Tomorrow we'll be deciding our next move. You'll have a say in the decision, if you want it. I give a nod, knowing my status as a Royal of Goldus will be a contributing factor to whatever comes next. With the last goodbye, I leave the captain on the bridge and head towards the infirmary before we both incur the wrath of the Tilaari medic. The doors to the infirmary hiss as they open and admit me to the room, and Riona's head snaps up from where she's seated in front of her terminal. She gives me a soft smile, standing to greet me. Beginning to think Calderon ignored my message. Does he do that a lot? She chuckles, her blue lips widening to reveal most of her teeth. More than you'd think. I pace further into the room, glancing over the various plants and specimens that cover the cabinets and desks. You said you wanted to do a checkup. I do. Well, I really just wanted to make sure you were all right. She gestures for me to take a seat on the familiar medical bed, and once again the plastic crinkles under me as I sit. It smells different in here again this time, like jasmine buds and nightfall. I'm sure Riona's missed her as a thick, pleasant scent, and I inhaled deeply, letting it calm me. So now that your memories have started returning, how much do you remember? Bits and pieces. They seem to be coming back easier now, but some are still fuzzy. Riona takes her medical wand and lights a tip, checking my eyes first, and then my ears before she takes my temperature. Any pain? I have a headache, but that's it. She sets down her wand and goes over to a large cabinet. After shuffling around in it a little, she comes back with a small container. Take a couple of these. I'll give you some relief. You can take them every 4 to 6 hours if the pain persists. She fills a glass with water and hands it to me, and I swallow down a couple of the pills. Almost immediately, the ache in my head begins to dull, and I hand the glass back to her with a grateful smile. I'd like to do some scans over the next couple of days. It will take a little while, but it will give me a clearer view of what's going on in that head of yours. I nod, and she gives me a gentle smile, placing a comforting hand on my arm. I can't imagine what you must be going through right now. And then her face falls, and the glimmer of her skin fades, betraying her true emotions. I'm sorry for your family, Tony. I truly am. With a nod of my head, I accept her condolences, giving her a grateful smile. It'll be all right, but thank you anyway. I know what it's like to live with a difficult family, and I've seen my share of tragedy. For talking it over with Calderon, I don't feel I can take any more talking about my family, so I steer the conversation in a new direction instead. When you left your home, was it a difficult decision to make? Riona gives me a sidelong glance, as though she sees what I'm doing. Thankfully, she runs with it. The toughest, but I knew I had to do something more. That's when I joined the Archangels and traveled the system with them, helping those in need. What happened to them? With a sigh, she brings a chair over to face where I sit and drops down into it with no small amount of grace. I'll tell you if you want to hear it, but it's not a pretty story. Again, I'm not going to roll the dice because I definitely want to hear it. 1 second. You need to adjust. I'd like to hear the story, as long as you're willing to tell it. She doesn't speak for a moment, gathering her thoughts before her story begins. Before she speaks, her skin flickers, torn between conflicting emotions. When I left Tilaari, it was with a friend. His sister was an archangel, and he was going out to join her, so I tagged along. The work we did was, well, it was amazing at first. The face drops, and I know the worst is yet to come. You were here on Terranium, and a group of Tilaari certainly draws attention. We didn't think. We were too focused on trying to get our name out there and trying to help people. I'm sure you know of the Canary Sovax followers. They're a brutal, bloody clan. They do what they want, when they want to. I nod, having heard stories of their exploits, and I feel a sense of dread crawl down my spine. One day, we were walking the streets when 24, maybe more, surrounded us. 24 against the 10 of us. So, for people who may be confused, a dozen is 12. So 24, 24 people. So 24 people against 10. That's more than twice the numbers. They rounded us up. They pushed us down a dark alley, away from prying eyes. No one dared to stop them. We had helped countless people, and yet no one helped us. They herded us like cattle. They insulted, beat, and belittled us. A couple of the Archangels tried to escape, and while the Canary were distracted, my friend, Mila, pushed me into the shell of a ruined building. She saved my life. I was able to hide quickly enough, concealed by the remnants of the building I was in. They couldn't see me, but I saw everything. They didn't bother to count the bodies. They didn't care how many of us were there, as long as we were dead. I watched them butcher my friends, every single one of them, and I did nothing. I'm debating whether I want to roll the dice here. Yeah, we'll roll the dice. Odd number first option, even number second option. 3. Your friends saved you for a reason. If you had tried to do anything, you wouldn't be here today. Maybe it would have been better to die with them. Oh, baby. My heart clenches, hitting how broken the words sound and how our beautiful skin dulls. Don't say that. You still have people who need you. I try to keep thoughts of my family at bay, of the final moments and what I would have seen if I had been there. The memory of Nerissa hits especially hard. Was she frightened? Did she suffer? I can safely say that no matter what happened, my sister would have gone down fighting. She was never one to give up so easily. Rihanna takes in a deep, shuddering breath, her bright eyes shining with unshed tears. I can't remember how long I hid there, terrified to leave in case they came back. She stops suddenly, a silent memory playing in her mind, one only she has access to. With a sigh, she continues her story, her eyes half closed, as though she might still be back there, in that damned alleyway. When I finally stumbled out of there, something inside me was changed. I had this anger. I was sad, yes, but that rage consumed me, rage and helplessness. I was one person against an entire clan. Eventually, I found refuge in a crowded bar, hoping to disappear amongst the crowd until I could figure out what to do next. That bar was the Ark. What happened next? I saw a familiar face, one who insisted he owed me a debt. Sebastian. The face lights up with a memory, and I can only imagine how it must have felt to find a friendly face after such a tragedy. He introduced me to Calderon. I told the captain my story, and since then I've been a part of the crew. So you joined the crew because you had no other choice? I joined them because they were hunting monsters. Calderon, after what he had been through, was hell-bent on stopping Sobek and the Chimeri by any means possible. Suddenly, I wasn't helpless anymore. She fixes me with these unusual yellow eyes, her stare suddenly determined. We failed on Goldus. It won't happen again. Something in Riona's demeanor scares me a little. I can't say I blame her for wanting revenge against a group from murdered heroes. So now you know why I joined Andromeda Six. I'm here to see that Sobek and the Chimeri fall. I don't know how yet, but we'll find a way. That's all that matters. I'm not going to roll the dice on this one. I see your determination, and I know how it feels to want justice, and even revenge. The most important person in my life was murdered, and I wasn't even there to say goodbye. And because they decided to read this, then you know how it feels, how it carves out a piece of your humanity and your faith. Our eyes meet, and something in me feels connected by the tragedies we both had to endure. I'm starting to feel it, more than I ever wanted to. But what do you do now that you know? My mouth pulls into a tight line, determined that whatever happens, I'll find the path I need to be on. Kaiser mentioned meeting tomorrow to discuss what happens next. I suppose I'll hear what everyone has to say, and decide from there. Riona opens her mouth to say something, but stops before the words come out. What is it? With an apologetic smile, she finally speaks. There are too many people who abuse the power they have, but sometimes doing nothing at all is just as bad. Yep. And in some ways it's worse because you had the power to do something and you did nothing with it. You're the only surviving Pegasi. You have the biggest claim to the throne if you want it. She doesn't meet my eyes, but I understand what she's trying to say. I haven't had the chance to think on it much, and I'm not sure how much I want to. There are people who would support you. I'd support you. Okay, I'm not going to roll the dice because I definitely wanted to do this one. When I flip a stray strand of silver hair back behind her ear, her eyes soften on me. My hand lingers on the side of her face far longer than I intended, and she covers it with her own, her long fingers seeping her gentle warmth into me. I'm glad you found us, Tony. The crew, I mean. I am too. It's just... My smile falters, my hand slipping back down to my side. What you said, it's not something I've thought about yet. To be honest, it's not something I've thought about ever. Yeah, I mean, they were the youngest Pegasi child. There was practically no chance that they'd end up on the throne. And look what's happened. I'm the youngest of 11 children. This day should never have happened. Whatever you decide, Sova can't be left to rule. There has to be someone else. There are others who might have a claim, as weak as it may be, but none of that mattered with Sovak at the head of power. For all I know, he might have murdered them too. Riona lets out a heavy breath, and for the first time I noticed how tired she was. All of a sudden I feel incredibly guilty for having kept her up so late. It's late, and we both need to get some rest. I'll see you again when you come back for your stand. I'm sure that tomorrow there will be a lot we all need to discuss. I sit down and straighten myself up, wishing Riona a good night before leaving the infirmary, looking forward to finding a moment of peace alone in my room. Upon entering my room, I fall back into the bed, exhausted and thoroughly ready for a moment alone. I need sleep. I can feel that in my mind as much as my body, but the memories plague me, refusing to give me a moment's rest. The thought that sticks in my mind, above all, is that I need to stay a step ahead of Zovac. How exactly I'm going to manage that remains to be seen, but I have to find a way. After that, I'll deal with the grief. Nerissa, Vex. The one thing I know is if I hadn't gone looking for Vex, I wouldn't be alive right now. There had only been a handful of times that my family had all been together. Weddings, funerals. Zovac would have had it all planned out. When I think back on my family and the life we lived together, my feelings are mixed. Mostly I was alone, with only my servants and guards for company. Before Vex came along, I would try to find ways to spend time with my siblings, but the less in common I found we had, the more I stopped trying. The only one who made this time for me was Nerissa. Even with all her duties, we had a strong bond. I was always Nerissa's favorite. My sister should have been queen in place of our negligent father, and we both eagerly awaited her time on the throne. Now my music box, a gift from my eldest sister, is the only thing I have left of her. And my father wasn't supposed to be king. I'd heard the stories. He had lost his own father and his brother all on the same day. He was thrust onto the throne, too young and inexperienced to know what to do with it, guided only by his uncle and the crown council. That's a recipe for disaster, given the description of his uncle. My grandfather was a great king, and so I've heard. But his brother and son unraveled all he had done in a matter of a few short years, and left the system in disarray. My mother was Nicole, the lunar queen and the king's second wife. She was kind and gentle. When I was young, we would play games in the garden, just the two of us. But as time went on, she grew distant and detached from the world. Eventually, she stopped speaking completely, spending days upon days locked away in her rooms until she was all but forgotten. I never forgot her. With the memories of my family playing in my mind, I eventually drifted into a restless sleep. Now, your mother was, if you're Kitalphan, your mother was the second queen. Obviously, if you went with human or Tilaari, your mother is one of the others. So my understanding is that the king had three wives, one human, one Kitalphan, one Tilaari. And yeah, your relationship with the mother is slightly different depending on which one you are. So that's fun. I tumbled out of the ballroom with Bex on my heels, his laughter almost as loud as my own as it draw the attention of nearby guests. We danced for hours and hours, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd had so much fun. Though things were always fun with Bex around. But the ballroom had eventually started to clear out, and we finally agreed to cut the night short, thinking it best to avoid being seen. Lieutenant, sir, what are you doing away from your post? The captain stops and squints at me, and while Bex quickly steps between us to shield me from his view, it's too late. Your Highness? You're not supposed to be here. Bex looks back at me over his shoulder, a single word slipping from between his lips. Run. I don't have to be told twice. Turning on my heel, I bolt down the corridor, pushing through the crowd of confused and horrified guests, who thankfully thin out as I reach the end of the hall, deciding which way to turn. This way. A hand grabs mine, and a bubble of laughter escapes me as Bex pulls me down the hall to the left, her feet pounding the carpeted floor as shouts erupt from behind us. We turn another corner, and then one more, until Bex stops before a large tapestry, pulls it aside, and pushes me into the hidden passageway behind it. I lean back against the wall, breathing hard. Bex knows the secrets of this house almost as well as I do, and tonight I couldn't be more glad for it. Bex, I think we lost. Bex steps before me and clamps a hand over my mouth, just as the sound of footsteps echoes from the hallway on the other side of the passageway. I still at once, and satisfied that I won't make a sound, Bex drops his hand and gives me a crooked grin. This is where we're going to pick the third option. When I move closer, Bex responds in kind, his body pressing me back against the wall and flooding me with warmth. Tony. My hands slip around his neck, brushing over scars from his gills. His fingers rest on my waist, keeping me still. Footsteps echo up and down the corridor, but I barely hear them, too focused instead on my own unsteady breathing and the way he leans closer, his emerald eyes locked on mine. Are you mine, Your Highness? His whisper caresses my lips in a warm breath, and I do nothing but nod, fingers threading through his scarlet hair to bring his mouth to mine. I think there's something here. The tap on the tapestry startled us, and Beck grasped my hand to pull me further down the quickly darkening passageway. We all but tumble out from behind a statue and into another corridor, the quiet of the area a welcome change of pace. Beck catches me around the waist and pulls me against him, wicked humor in his eyes. The remnants of his laughter rumble through me, and when he runs his thumb over my bottom lip, my heart beats in a steady rhythm in my chest. One day we'll leave this place. I'll take you somewhere where there are no rules or expectations, where we can just be us. Do you promise? I promise, Tony. With the start, I wake, bolting upright in bed and blinking against the harsh sun shining through the window. A rhythmic knock on my door drags me back to the present, the rush of a memory that had just come to me slowly fading as I get up and make my way to the door, smoothing down my wrinkled outfit. I'm not sure how long I slept for, but the steady stream of sunlight that filters through the window tells me it was long enough. When I slide open the door with a hiss, I find a certain pilot standing in the doorway, looking much too perky for this early in the morning. Oh, I didn't think you'd be awake already. Naomi smiles wide, beaming at me with an energy that's not fitting of someone who'd barely gotten any sleep last night. I bid you good morning, Your Highness. It's not due to waste away daylight. I have thus come to make sure thou art ready for the day ahead. Give me a half bow. The poor usage of old English, coupled with the choking sound of strained laughter, simply gives it away just how much fun Ayame seems to be having at my expense. Can't say I blame her for this terrible impression of a royal servant. I too would be in line to make fun of the lost humble child if I was her. Might as well roll with it. That was horrible, but I love it. Well, of course you do. My second impression is spot on. Not the words I'd use to describe it, but I don't have an image to burst her bubble, so I step back and make my way for her to join me in my room instead. I'm glad she came over. After the time we spent together in Terranium, it would have sucked if my past pushed her away from me. Having Aya around is like sitting by a warm fireplace on a winter night, and I hate it. It's who I am, and I had to give up on her company. We were glancing around. Ayame quickly makes her way to the foot of my bed, plopping down on the covers before turning her piercing violet eyes on me. So, how are you? All things considered, I reckon I'm doing well. Not as if anything I do will change what has happened. All I can do is figure out what to do next and commit. Pressing her lips together, Ayame stares at me for a few more seconds, before blinking away and shaking her own head. I'm glad she came to check on me, and that she bothered asking how I'm feeling. The curiosity still nags at me as to her thoughts on this and me. Okay. Here we go, rolling the dice. Come here. Odd number first option, even number second option. 3. 3 years old. Me? Her bright, almond-shaped eyes blinked slowly, almost as if she had been expecting anything but that question. I'd almost been expecting a shocking response, but she swiftly shifts into a smile again, and waves a dismissive hand at me. Don't be silly, Tony. Here I was worrying about you, and you end up worrying about me. I'm doing fine. Don't worry. What about your hand? Nothing to it. I've been through worse. See, it's all good. As a show of prowess, Aya rolls her wrist and flexes her fingers. I still remember the state her hand was in last night, but maybe the club lights made it seem worse than it truly was. It's still as if a weight lifted off my chest when I see her like this, though. Tapping on the empty bed space next to her, Aya gestures me to come over. Have I ever told you how I ended up in the army? I'm aware that Calderon and her had served together, but while I can clearly see why the captain would choose to follow a military career, it's quite hard to picture Ayame waking up one day and enlisting. Shaking my head, she hates to take a moment before speaking again. Well, it's a long story, so... Of course, if you don't listen, I want to hear it. I leaned back against the wall, still sitting on my bed as I readied myself to listen to her story. I was born in Kitalphan. It wasn't in its best state by then already, but all the chaos caused by the Mustard's experiments. But it was home. I will admit, I'm not very well versed in political nuances of how the Kitalphans tried to escape the impending doom of our home, but I know the others were dicks about it. The Tilaari all but kicked us out of their doorstep, but we were never really close, so I don't know what they thought was going on. I wasn't even 10 years old at the time, and hardly anyone talks about that now. Anna pauses, her throat bobbing up and down as she closes her eyes for a moment. I don't interrupt her, respecting her pace of telling me her story. I lost my home, but Goldus is still there. Tulsa, on the other hand. King Fenris, though, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but already being, he was a fucking son of a bitch. When Aya speaks again, it's with eyes burning with anger and frustration, venom in her voice when she says the King's, my father's name. Do you know what he said when my people asked for shelter? That we could work for it, which is fair, only in the mines. The same shithole they threw criminals and whoever else they didn't like in. The same place that led our home to ruin. If it wasn't for that stupid place, they never would have uncovered that stupid substance, and we would have never decided to experiment with it to try to weaponize it. I get it, okay? We too were to blame for our doom. If we hadn't been greedy to the point of wanting to mess with shit like that, we never would have fucked things up and messed with our planet's core. But it doesn't matter now. Kitalphan is gone. This is supposed to be about me, I guess. I shouldn't have started calling your father names. I didn't know him like you did or something. Okay, I'm not going to roll the dice on this one. I can understand the sorrow and pain that stems from everything he's ever done, which apparently is even more than I could ever imagine, but I just can't see how anything would justify being brutally murdered along with his whole family. Murmured. I'm sorry, I truly am. But I can't condone murder. If he truly did everything he did, he should have been brought to justice, not be taken out like that. A sharp pain shoots behind my eyes. The flashes of the past as I ran away come to mind. The screams, the overthrown furniture, broken decor, blood. I didn't deserve to die like that. My family didn't. My family doesn't say anything, but takes hold of my hand. Her short, slender fingers squeezing it once as she gives me a small smile. No words are necessary when I look at her. It's obvious she hated my father and believes he deserved to die. It's also clear she doesn't think the same applies to the rest of my family. And I'm just glad she respects my opinion enough not to argue. With a small, quick smile, she lets go of my hand, straightening back up to carry on with her story. Well, anyway, all the young Kitalphans were shipped off in pods for the surrounding planets. Despite the lack of open doors for us, we've always been adaptable. We weren't about to roll over and die. My parents, they stayed behind with all the adults and elders, but they put me in a pod with my little brother, directed it to Golders because they thought we'd have a better chance of making it there. You have a brother? When after the words leave my mouth and her face twists into a sad frown, but I realize how stupid my question was. Had. I'm sorry. I shrugged it off, and I don't insist. She'll talk about it when she's ready, and I must respect that. He was 5 when this happened, so I didn't really understand what had happened when we made it to Golders. We were alone in some back alley from the Bronze District, and there was no one else to look out for us. I had to take that on myself, taking care of me, my little brother, making sure we had food to eat, shelter to sleep. We couldn't just waltz into a foster home, and nobody would even spare us a glance in the streets. People in Bronze are poor, jobs are scarce, and you gotta make do with what you have. I ended up doing what most street kids did then, stealing food, clothes, toys, money, books. I tried to get anything I could from my little brother. He was growing, you know. I guess so was I, but I didn't want him to lose out on anything. I teach him how to read, write, math. I tried to give him a chance to be someone while depriving myself of all of it. I had no home anymore. He was my home. He was the only thing that kept me going. But maybe I never really thought about how he felt. You see, I tried to make him into the perfect boy so he could grow to become the perfect man. I never taught him the ways of the streets, despite both of us living on it for years and years. The voice wavers and my chest tightens. Somehow I get the feeling I know how the story is going to end. And she did say she had a brother. Anna continues to speak, her voice lower, her fingers drawing random patterns on my bed covers. I was growing, right? I think I was around 15, he was turning 10. You know boys, they're curious, naive. I didn't see it. He gets it from me. And maybe I just refused to see it, even when it was right in front of me. Who knows? But he started doing drugs. He was a kid, Tony. He made good friends, started hanging out with some other kids, and I might have sheltered him too much. He would try anything they could get their hands on. They were just misguided kids in the end, you know? One day I came back to our hideout, and he was dead. Her expression is a mix of sorrow and rage, and there are truly no words that to be said that would make better in this situation. Losing a loved one is horrible. Losing your only family after losing your parents and giving up your own life for its happiness. I don't know what I would have done in her place. I'm scared to know what she did. I was so angry at him, at his friends, at me. I left. I ran. I couldn't stand saying goodbye to all I had left of my family. I couldn't stand admitting it was my own damn fault he was gone. So I did something stupid, like every other grieving person out there. A broken laugh, a sad smile. I want nothing more than to reach out to her, but something keeps me in place. So all I do is watch. Yeah, just taking my mind. She blames herself for losing her brother, for not teaching him to be street smart. But he was 10, and he chose to take those drugs. He chose to hang out with those friends. So it wasn't her fault entirely. It was his fault too. He made a choice, and it killed him. They each made their choices, and it resulted in his death. And I can't keep blaming myself for it. I don't know if anyone said that to her, because in the end, it was his choice. It was a stupid choice, but his choice nonetheless. I went after those kids. I didn't know them, nor did I care to. I wanted to blame someone, a life for life, and I couldn't think of anyone else to blame. I never got the chance to exact my revenge, though. One of the kids was a child of a guard member. They were on my ass in a second, beating me up for raising my filthy Kitalphan hands on his precious drug dealer fucking kid. Next thing I know, I'm getting thrown in a cell, all bruised and starving. A couple days go by, and I'm already accepting my impending death, you know? It's not something you fear when you grow up in the streets. It's just something inevitable. But instead, this army dude comes along and says that instead of being shipped off to the mines, they're giving us a chance to fight. A chance to enlist. I assume they needed some grunt work, or it was some twisted form of charity they did. Regardless, I took the deal. Why would I ever give them the pleasure of shipping an illegal Kitalphan refugee to the stupid mines that could make them give me food, shelter, and a paycheck? I mean, that's a good reason. Besides, I didn't really have anything else to do. As if it was practice, I bounced off the side or she had until just a moment ago, moving on like it was nothing. For some reason, I don't trust the easy smile on her face. It worries me, in fact. Just how often does I have to act like everything is fine on the surface? All those years fighting for her brother, suppressing her own feelings, it's not something that just fades away. It was easy enough at the cadet academy. I wasn't the best in academics, but man, did I kick ass in piloting classes or what. Once I graduated, they shipped me off to the Bronze District, and I ended up in dear old Captain Squad. I might have made him suffer a bit with my antics, but I respected the man. He was a decent guy, chose to be in Bronze because he wanted to help others and all that, so I had his back. Even if he most likely ended up losing some life years whenever I found him to go out with me on a joyride. But isn't that against the law? That's half the fun. It's easy to imagine the captain's reaction whenever he found himself stuck with Aya in a situation like that. It's even easier to imagine Aya's reaction to that. As for me, I'm just glad they're still alive after that. His stuck-up and responsible behavior even rubbed off on me, because when they sucked him over, I was able to control my urge for revenge and managed to help him out, and here we are today. Novak never did anything to me directly, but I can never forgive him for going for Calderon. I guess it's an army thing. I'll stand by my commander for as long as I'm alive. Her face might have still had that youthful smile on, but her eyes were dead serious when she talked about how she respects the captain. She didn't even seem to realize she'd called him commander, but unlike Damon, she didn't seem to use that term to mark him. Anyway, enough about me. I just wanted you to know you're not alone here. We may be just a bunch of weird misfits with an arguable set of morals, but we've got each other's back. Okay, we're going to go ahead and roll the dice on these productions. Odd number first for action, even number second for action. First for action. It's my favorite. I'm so glad that it ended up on that one. It already sounds like a bad idea in my mind. I'm pretty sure it'll get even worse when I say it out loud. But what can I do? I'd actually love to go on a joyride with you someday. You do know we'd be one of people merely checking another item on our crime list, right? The smile that stretches on my lips feels like a mirror to hers, as if she thinks she's won this round already. I'd like to see just how far she's willing to go on these games we play. You've got a point. There's another option, one that wouldn't consist of a felony. Oh? Letting the tip of my tongue slowly peek out of my mouth, I can't take my eyes off Aya as she watches me wet my lips before answering her, the gills on her neck trembling ever so slightly. There's something you can read that's much closer than you think, you know? Aya crossed her head to the side, curiosity clear in her eyes. Me. Her cheeks flowed with color, and my smile grows even larger at the flush that takes over her pretty face. Aya blinks at me a few times before burying her face in her hand and throwing a pillow at me with a groan. I can't believe I fell for it. It was so obvious. Damn it. Laughter floods out of me as I grab hold of the pillow she threw, almost tearing up at her reaction. She stands up, still trying to hide her furious flush, mumbling unintelligible words at herself. So, is that a no? I asked, trying to restrain my laughter. That? I storms to the door, her hand hovering on the panel next to it as she turns back and pokes her tongue at me. I very much like to see what you'll do when I actually say yes to your moves, Your Highness. It's my turn to blush at that. What would I do when she... Wait, she had said when she says yes, right? Then that means she... Looking forward to her next one. And one time, Tony. During my final week, she leaves my room, her footsteps echoing on the corridor of just outside. I feel lighter after talking with her, and determined. Dazzling and yelling, I get up and head outside as well. Okay, I need to take a quick break here. I will be back shortly. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, I feel better. After speaking with I can't help but wonder what the rest of the crew thinks about this whole situation as I leave my room. My dream, or rather memory effect, still creeps in the back of my mind. I don't know how to feel about it, about him, about how different he was when we met. There's one about leaving the crew bothers me. Was he serious? Should I truly consider it? But where would I even go? What would I do? That I chose to hide him from the crew weighs on me. What does that say about me? I don't know. Somebody told me to keep it to myself. I can't be sure how right that decision was, and I can't change that now. My thoughts are interrupted when I turn the corner to find someone leaning against the opposite wall, someone I'm not sure I particularly want to see right now. Now look what the cat dragged out of the bag. Of course I'd run into him of all people. Even if I brace myself for what's about to come. Are you here to kidnap me and turn me in all on your own? Sadly, no. Maybe some other time if we get the chance. Then why were you waiting to ambush me right around the corner? He doesn't even bother trying to hide the glowing smirk on his face. The demon doesn't just casually hang around the corridors. He's waiting for me. But what for, I wonder? I was bored. Jalen looks anything but bored, if I'm being honest. His sapphire eyes clench sharply as he stares at me, curiosity and intrigue shining plain as day. Despite it all, it is comforting to know he hasn't changed after finding out who I am. I'm not a fool. I understand how my presence affects the crew. It's not that much of a leap in logic to see where he comes from when he says he wants to turn me in. I just hope it's not because he holds some personal grudge against my family. I'll just have to face it head on if that's the case. Getting blood out of fabric is ridiculously tiring, so just burning them outside. It's worked this way, you know. I'd almost forgotten how he claimed he took care of things last night, the blood staining his hands and cheek. My thoughts drifted back, walking away again. The idea that it could have been him who Damon found bringing ice to my veins. Yet his hands are not pristine, skin unblemished, enough to make anyone in my position question if there really was any blood at all just a few hours ago. Okay. Yeah, D6. Yeah. So 1 or 4, first option. 2 or 5, second option. 3 or 6, third option. So here we go. It's a 1. A shiver makes its way down my spine, and words leave my mouth before I can even think them over. Doesn't it bother you? Death? Why would it? Because it's terrible. Corners of his lips pull up, making it as clear as the bright sun outside just how much he's enjoying this conversation. Wouldn't know. He never tried it. I'm serious. So am I. It makes no sense to worry about that. Death is a natural part of life. He says it so casually. My focus shifts entirely to him. Maybe he's so used to it. He doesn't answer me right away. Instead, choosing to narrow his gaze at me. It's almost as if he's considering how serious I am with my questions before giving me a response. It must sound silly, naive even given I already know he was born and raised in Cursa and had a rough idea of how things work there. The question has still been honest. It might be because of how sheltered I've led my life until now, but the idea of death being normal, being something that doesn't bother him, disturbs me. Guess you are serious about it. Back to his stance, Damon bites his lower lip before letting out a sigh. My parents were killed when I was 10 years old, or something. They owed a lot of money to this gang, and, well, they obviously collected. I don't care. I was better off without them anyway. Not like they were caring and nurturing people. I pretty much raised myself on the streets way before that. They didn't bother me. I didn't bother them. It was a fair exchange. Besides, I turned out pretty damn fine, if you ask me. But Damon, you were 10. That's not... He rolls his eyes at me, ignoring my interjection, carrying on with the story as if he had no interest in what I had to say. I had this friend, a year older than me. She taught me how to pick pockets, how to hold a knife the right way, reading people, all about how to survive in person, basically. We were just another couple of poor, skinny kids on those streets. My parents being killed was nothing different than what had happened to her or to any other kid out there. Death didn't make you special. It was part of our lives from the beginning. It was how you handled it that mattered. Nothing changed after that. If anything, it got easier for me. I didn't have to worry about their deaths, as that had been handled. I started doing some jobs, making a name for myself on the streets. So I finally joined one of the main gangs of Persia and ditched that shithole, earning myself this pretty little scar. Damon tapped the scar on his eyebrow twice and stopped after that, raising an eyebrow at me inquisitively, almost as if he already knows all the questions I want to ask. Growing up as an orphan was not something very common in the Gold District. Even when I sneaked out of the palace with Bex, I didn't see that side of Toyota. I couldn't even begin to imagine what it must have been like to grow up in such a reality. No family, no safety, no schools. Do the kids in Cursa even have enough to eat? Isn't there anyone to help them? Aren't there guards responsible for handling security? There's so many things I want to ask him, so much I want to know. Taking the leap from having a family member die and resorting to thievery to taking lives for a living is still too much. Why? My voice drifts off. It's not something easily discussed, how one resorts to being an assassin. I want to know, to make me understand better what makes Damon who he is, but still. A low chuckle pulls me out of my reverie, and I find Damon's sharp smile taking its familiar place on its face again, only this time with a cold, sadistic edge to it I don't think I've seen on him before. Oh, you didn't quite get it. I learned how to feel and wield a knife way before they died. And when I said my parents were killed, I don't mean I came home and found their bodies resting peacefully in our living room. A shiver runs down my arms, dread flooding me in anticipation of his next words. I mean, I was there, and I was meant to have died as well. Collateral damage. Then how? The question dies on my lips with the side of the smile on his face, his dark laugh that escapes him. What do you think? I don't want to think about it. I don't want to make it real by saying the words, but I do it anyway. You killed him. Naturally. You were a child. And what did you expect me to do? Lie down and die? There is nothing one can even respond to that. A child should never have had to be faced with that choice or lack of choice in that situation. It doesn't justify Damon being a jerk most of the time, but at least it starts to explain why he takes steps so lightly. You gotta do what you gotta do, and sometimes that means killing a guy. Or two. Okay. I remember we picked the first option, even remember we picked the second option. Even. A 2. I shake my head in denial. There's no way I can accept that. That should never be the solution. Taking someone's life should never be okay. Of course, a privileged kid like you wouldn't understand. It's not about that. Even every life matters. Killing people should be taken as normal, regardless of circumstances. So you're saying that a 3-year-old Slovak had a gun to your head and you went to his, you wouldn't pull the trigger to save yourself? The idea I'd ever have to make that choice is so foreign to me. I have a hard time processing it. It doesn't feel like there even is a right answer for this. Would I be able to do it? Would I be able to take a life to save my own? Of course you don't know. The whirring sound of the ship's engine is the only thing that cuts through the silence surrounding us after that exchange. It's a lot to process, and despite my response, I'm still conflicted about it. It's hard to believe nobody cares about the reality of the people in Cursa and Terranium. Had it truly been my family who made it acceptable to ignore this kind of suffering? Had it been my father? It hadn't escaped my attention how Damon doesn't seem to be treating me any different now that my past has come up. Everyone so far had changed, even if only slightly, but he is still the same. Can I ask you something? What? Do you hate the Bugatti for what my father did? You want to know what I think about Slovak, Aquinum? Yes. I'm going to phrase it that way, obviously, but I can't really fool myself into being surprised by Damon's attacks anymore. I mostly want to know what reason he could have had for wanting to turn me in so soon. I couldn't care less about that if I tried. Your old dad of yours was a dick. Everyone knows that. I'm pretty sure even you know that. He never struck me as a good father figure. I know he was a bad king, and you're right. We were never really close. But did he truly deserve to die? Did my whole family deserve it? Don't we all, I wonder? Don't get me wrong. Slovak's a dick in his own right, too. And I know. I work for the man. I just don't have anything personal against him like the others. My eyes lighten at that. It was more about how casual he makes it sound than by the fact that he did it all. But isn't he a dictator? He killed my whole family. You don't really think the leader of the coup did great work, do you? At best, he killed the king, maybe a queen if they were around. Slovak is a damn genius. Being evil or good is debatable. Never saw him hurt a pet, so I don't really hate him or anything. That's where you draw the line? You're damn right it is. He wouldn't be alive if he had. There isn't a hint of humor in him as he states that. It both terrifies and astonishes me how little Damon seems to care about human life, but you put a pet in the mix and he goes feral. Yeah, and according to the devs, Damon wanted a cat, but Tilaari said no. That Damon is a cat person through and through, which kind of makes me like him, but he's just his attitude is very off-putting to me. That is absolutely not a wound I'd willingly put. I actually bonded over some stray cats in between jobs. Fun, easier times to live, I tell you. What did you do for him anyway? Well, this and that. Which clearly means murder and any other sort of criminal activity I could come up with, I'm assuming. Okay, we're gonna stay and listen. I first ran to the guy after I left Cursor and was looking for a job. It's not like I cared who I worked for as long as they paid me. But then you left his gang? No, I never really joined it. I was more of a freelancer, if that makes it easier to understand. Sure, he tried to sign me up, but I don't really appreciate being tied down. He ended up roping in some other guy, this kinda weird redhead, but he was aight. I used to call him Carrot Head even, but we lost contact after that. Anyway, it was a boring, lengthy assignment, so I passed it and left on good terms. A redhead who worked for Zolak didn't couldn't possibly have been vexed before, right? Right? Pushing the thought from my mind, I try to stay focused on my questions. There's still a lot I want to know, several questions unanswered, and I'm not sure how much more he'd be willing to let me ask. You don't like being tied down. How come you're not part of the A6? Because I want to be. You passed the one question request a long time ago. You got one more. I got stuff to do. First my lips, I try to think of one final question, despite not being any need for that. There is only one more thing I need to know, one thing that's been bothering me since last night. Another chance to ask will hardly come by. Why did you want to sell me out? Because it's the obvious choice to make. With a sigh, he runs a hand through his hair before looking at me through narrowed eyes. If you're hoping for an apology, stop. Having you around's been fun and all, but at the end of the day, we are the ones with the big ass bounty on our heads. And I don't like having to work even harder to make sure these idiots stay alive. Or you, for that matter. Shipping your ass to Zolak would be dead ass be the easiest way out of this mess. But somehow Cat's grudge against the guy is still bigger than logic. So, and don't even think about asking me about it. It ain't my story to tell. Cal may be an idiot sometimes, but I like the guy. Not to mention, I owe him. I appreciate the respect he seems to have for Calvin for keeping the captain's business his own, but I'm also quite curious about what he had meant by saying he owes him. Okay, so odd number first for option, even number second for option. 3. I'm well aware Damon hadn't given up on turning me in out of the kindness of his heart, but why not push my luck? Well, you should be glad to do it. You saw me out. Damon quirks an eyebrow at me, watching me like a hawk. I take a step closer to him, but closing the distance between us. You'd miss me terribly if I wasn't around anymore. Faster than I could expect, his face had shifted into that crooked grin that has me questioning everything. He spins us around, forcing me to lean against the wall as he stands in front of me. His scent floods my nostrils, being room with a hint of mint, making my mind spin in circles as I once again find myself getting lost in the deep sapphire ocean in his eyes. There hasn't been a lot to miss, though, has it? Other than this game of cat and mouse you seem to enjoy playing, Tony. All you have so far are words, and you already know I don't appreciate being tied down. Slender, cold fingers run softly over my neck, stopping under my chin and tilting my head up as Damon leans in. I'm much more on the side that enjoys doing tying, you see. His eyes never leave mine, utterly serious in spite of his grin, almost as if he wants to see how far I'm willing to go with this. My heartbeat thrumming in my ears is the only thing keeping me grounded. Damon is right. I like this game we play. I start it most of the time, but what are the odds? He doesn't know how to play fair. Will I ever win this thing? Unlikely. Before I can muster up a response, Damon throws me a wink and steps back, thoroughly enjoying the frazzled state I'm in. Jerk. Damon might not be the kindest of the crew, quite the opposite, in fact. But in some strange way, talking to him made me feel a little better. If that was his intention, or if he'd only been curious, I don't think I'll ever find out. But I'm glad for it, at least. Someday, your brain will burn out if you keep overthinking everything like that. Try not to destroy anything while I'm gone, Your Highness. He shoots me a final smirk and turns to leave, but something sparks in me, and I have to stop him. Hey, Damon, just one more thing. What now? Did you know who I was? No, that makes sense. A sheltered little thing like you would be a Pegasi. Funny how even when I'm joking, I turn out to be right. It's a struggle to keep from rolling my eyes again, but I try to hold the most regal expression I can muster. However well that turns out. I could have been your head for mocking me. You'd have to catch me first. Jerk. He doesn't reply, just instead took his tongue at me as he starts walking away in typical Damon fashion. I spite ahead in the opposite direction, trying to find something to do to keep my mind from being engulfed by unwanted thoughts. Because, yeah, Damon does call you Your Highness. Um, Before you get to Terranium and Steven. After a few turns, I find myself standing in front of the door, looking down to the dump. A smile tugs at my lips, and I hear a voice I'm familiar with coming from behind it. Vash is always welcome company, and I hope, praying to every force in the universe, that nothing will have changed since last night. When I find the engineer down in the docks, he's giving orders to a couple of strange beings who are working on repairing the ruined supply room. I wait for him to finish, and when he notices me hanging around the bottom of the stairs awkwardly, he gestures for me to go over to him. Up those junkers, he explains as I approach, and looks at the pair, who are bickering between themselves in some unknown language as they work, and whispers the next part, leaning closer to hear him better. I still with the pair of old boots, but they're handy in a cinch. He smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes. I find myself wondering what's really going through that head of his. Back last night. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. I stop at the start, not having expected a response that was quite so dismissive. No, I want you. I want you to know that, royalty or not, I'm still the same old me. He grins, and this time I can tell it's genuine. Relief runs through me at the sight, happy to see that some things haven't changed. I'm glad to hear it, Tony. Bash cleans his hands on an old rag, smearing the fabric with oil before setting it down again. Once the total is fixed, we'll be able to get out of here. Should only take a few more hours at the most. He throws the phone behind him, and I can take a closer look at the progress in the open door to the supply room. Where will we go? Bash presses his arms over his chest, nose crinkling as he thinks about it. That's what we still need to decide. We need a place to truly lay low, since Terranium ended up being a bust. Perhaps one of the way stations between planets. There's a few that are run by retired mercs. A good place to get info on pickup jobs. All I know is with Felix Guy's on our trail, the sooner we leave, the better. He hesitates, since there's more he wants to say, but he doesn't know how. So back in the Chameleon clan, they've really done a number on all of us. I told you when we first met that when you had a story worth telling, I'd tell you about this. He holds up his metal arm, a grim expression on his face, and I take a closer look at the wires and metal plates that complete the piece. It seems even more than it. Again, not gonna roll the dice because I do want to hear this. You're talking for me. Okay. Oh, okay. This is a lot, so my voice is getting tired. Well, you did give me your word, actually. Ash grins, but the humor fades swiftly when the next verse loses his mind. I used to fight in arenas here in Terranium when I was growing up. The smaller ones, they used real fighters, humans mostly, a few kits and estimates here and there. The heritage ones are where the rich spend all their money, building mecha to fight to the death. Those catch people truly, but the others, well, they're a means to an end. And then there was rest. Anyone who was taking it had an unfair advantage, and I was determined to be the best. So of course I took the shit too, got hooked on it faster than a freight train. He doesn't look particularly proud of the fact, but I say nothing, encouraging him to continue with the story. I was wired all the gone down time. When I figured out how to make the drug myself with Australia, it didn't go down well with the gang. It's Mary. I'm sure you've heard all about them by now. I saw my voice rough, but I speak next. It seems they're responsible for most of what's happened to this crew. like you wouldn't believe. Picking up a red bolt from a stack of nearby crates, Bash balances it between its fingers before crushing it in the palm of his bionic hand. His focus fixed completely on that one small action. It was dark, late at night, and I just come out of a fight. I beat the guy to within an inch of his life. That's what Raj does to you, you know? Turns you into a fucking psychopath. I get jumped on my way out of the arena. Half a dozen guys on me right in the middle of the street. Shit, I gave it my all, but they were prepared. I took a dagger to the eye, another to the chest. That one pierced my lung, they told me afterwards. No wonder it hurt like hell. It pierced the bones in my arm so bad they were turned to splinters. It was never going to heal right, so the best thing to do was get rid of it completely. I still remember what it felt like when they were done with me. I was dying. I wanted to die. I had nothing to live for anyway. My chest tightened. I can only imagine how Bash felt in that moment. And even the mere thought of it was enough to tear me up inside. And then an angel saved you? An angel saved me, that's right. Found me beaten to a bloody pulp right in the middle of the street and refused to let me go. An archangel. All of a sudden, the pieces clicked into place, and I finally realized who Bash had meant all along. Rihanna. That's right. Rhea and her group patched me up and found a safe place for me to recover. I even asked her on a date when I finally looked up. Thought I owed her that much. She checked with a good memory, and my chest eases with a familiar sound. Her girl wasn't having any of it, though. She sure put me in my place. Luckily, I knew someone who could hook me up with the new gear. Synthetic skin, too, to cover the marks those bastards left behind. Some people keep the scars. I wonder where they come from, I suppose, but why would I keep the battle scars when I can have this perfection instead? He gestures to himself, and I roll my eyes, earning a chuckle from him. Okay, we're gonna roll the dice here. Odd number first option, even number second option. 3. Yeah, if you say so, pal. Bash puts a hand over his heart in mock offense. Are you trying to say that you don't like what you see? Because if you are, I'll know you're lying. I roll my eyes at him as he laughs, glad to find the easy banter between us hasn't changed a bit. You decide what to do next now that you know where you're from. I haven't decided anything is what I want to say, apart from the fact that if Sovak finds me alive, I'm done for. I'll be staying with the crew for the time being. What I say is said, and Bash seems happy to hear it. It doesn't take long, however, for his face to fall. I know you never asked for my opinion, but I wanted to give it anyway. I've never had any love for our leaders. I've seen roaches who could run the planets, even in systems better than the clowns who already had a crack at it. No offense. None taken. I never had a voice. I never had anything, but you could have a voice if you wanted it. You could make decisions that mattered and change everything. It's a noble idea that I could be the one to have such an impact on the world, but an idea nonetheless. But at the same time, I could understand if you don't want to. I mean, what has the world ever done for you, huh? It'd be easy enough to disappear, to start a new life somewhere, with someone new. Ash hangs his head in defeat, as though he wished he'd never spoke at all. When it comes down to it, I can't tell you what to do, what I do, because I don't know. It's not my choice to make. Okay. Again, I'm not going to roll the dice, because I know... Actually, you know what? Let's roll the dice here. I number first third option, even number second third option. 2. My fingers find his, the calluses brushing against my skin, and he squeezes my hand affectionately. I can't say how much it means to me to have him speak to me like I'm still me. I want to hear your opinions, Bash. All of them. He gives me a lopsided grin, pulling me closer and tapping me under the chin, and my stomach tightens. Good, because you're not getting rid of me that easily. My breath sticks in my throat, and I have to pull back before I get lost in his smile completely. He lets me go reluctantly, but goes to the smile still tugging at his lips. Take a couple steps back, I give him a smile, feeling better than I have all day. I should let you get back to your work. Like you said, the sooner we can leave, the better. That's right, and the sooner I can get the captain off my back, which is always a bonus. With a knowing smile, I head back towards the stairs to head up to the main level. So we talked to Tilaari, Riona, Aya, Damon, and Bash. There's one more person that we need to talk to, and that's not going to be fun. My mind is still racing when I leave the dark. Despite despite Bash being so refreshingly himself about everything, there have been others who aren't so thrilled by my situation, and it's raised 1,000 red flags in my mind. The crew all have varying opinions on the matter, and while it's important for me to hear them all, they haven't all been what I've expected. And there's still one person I haven't had the chance to speak to. There's a feeling that he's intentionally avoiding me grows stronger with each minute that passes. June. I can't stop myself from wondering what could possibly be going through his mind, and I need to find it out for sure. I don't think I'll be able to get a moment's rest if I don't. Traipsing through the corridors, I finally arrive outside what I believe to be his room, and knock a few times on the metal door. The echoing sound of heavy footsteps on the other side pulls me out of my reverie, and when the door slides open, June pauses, his hesitation made clear at the sight of me. From the way he looks at me, I half expect him to turn away and close the door, but instead he lets out a few mumbled words. "Oh, you're here. I was looking for you." He doesn't reply straight away, instead schooling his expression to one of nothing. One that doesn't suit the warm, kind man who saved me in the midst of tragedy and unleashed. "Oh." A chill runs down my arms, and I hold them against myself protectively, almost afraid to meet his eyes. June says nothing, does nothing, except look at me with a mild distaste. I can see now that I certainly haven't prepared myself for this in the least. I don't want it to matter to him who I am. The way I see it is just another piece of my past that I've managed to piece together, nothing more, but I'm afraid that's not my decision to make. June has had my back from the get-go, and despite the target that hangs over me like a neon sign, I can only hope that hasn't changed. Okay, I'm not going to roll the dice here. Feeling my nerves as much as I possibly can, I take a deep breath and start talking. "Can we talk, June?" Sorry, Tony, I'm a bit tired. Maybe later. Please excuse me." "Your Highness." My breath catches in my throat, and for a moment that word is all I can hear echoing in my head, over and over like the beat of a pounding drum. "Your Highness." My eyes sting when he pulls away, and the air that settles on my skin is as cold as ice. He barely even looked at me. He didn't even try. I blink dumbly at the hand that reaches out to close the door. I can't let him go like this. If he won't try, then I will. I can't choose my family or my title, and those things certainly don't change who I am. June, wait. My hand shoots to the door frame before it can shut me out, and his brows raise in surprise. Okay. Odd number first option, even number second option. Ooh, confront him. So what's the big deal? You hate me now because of who I am, or do you just hate my family in general? Frustration boils inside me at his reaction. I outright refusal to say anything at all. I can understand the hatred for my family. He wouldn't be the only one to feel that way, but I am not my father, and I certainly never shared his views on the world. Please, June, talk to me. He falls in defeat, his shoulders thumping as though the weight of the world is crashing down on him. When he looks at me next, his eyes flare in a way that almost terrifies me. I know you're not to blame, but I never had any affection for the Pegasi as a whole. The complete disregard King Fenris had for the people of Celiota, the way he was more than willing to overlook anything as long as it was making him a pretty penny. The volume of his voice raises with each word, and he takes a moment to rein himself in, to pull back that leash that he holds so tightly on himself. And I never saw any member of your goddamn family lift a finger to change it. Not true. My sister tried to change things, but was overruled every single time. So I don't dare voice this out loud. June's hands shake at his sides, clenching into fists so tight his knuckles lighten by the second. Before I realize what I'm saying, my mouth is already open. My voice is hissed so low that I'm not even sure he can hear me. Are you glad they're dead then? He falters at my question, and already I have my answer. The silence speaks louder than his words ever could. A wave of nausea hits me, knowing if I were truly amongst the dead, he would never have batted an eyelid. He would never have known who I was, what my dreams were, that one day in another life he might have called him my friend. He wouldn't have known any of it. I back away slowly, crushed by this knowledge, and it's only when he shoots out to grab my arm and stop me that I blink the tears from my eyes and dare to look at him. Stop, Tony. I didn't say anything. You didn't have to. I pull my arm back from him, and guilt flashes over his face, but only for a moment, before that stony mask is set back in place. I don't know the answer to your question. Violence is never the answer. Zorak is certainly not a better choice for a ruler, but he stops, takes in a deep breath, and fixes me with a hard stare. I can't say I'm sad that Fenris is gone. I swallow around the lump in my throat, steeling myself against the blunt edge of his words. I know my father wasn't fit to rule. I'm not an idiot. I've entered into the city enough times to know what the people thought. I didn't say, but to be happy he's dead? I let my voice echo off the metal walls, and not caring for a single moment that my anger is getting the best of me. How can we decide if someone deserves to live or die? June scoffs in a dark, deliberate sound, and the gesture catches me completely off guard. You think I care about Goldus? The dark growl of his voice rumbles through me, and it takes all I have not to let myself be unnerved by the raw fury I see behind his eyes. Goldus was paradise compared to what I had. I would have given anything to live even in the Bronze District, no matter how terrible Calvin makes it out to be. I don't know how much Damon has told you of his home, or what you've heard, because nobody ever talks about Cursa. His nostrils flare wide, anger rolling off him in waves that make my mouth go dry. You know why? Because it was abandoned. The Council of Iron gave up on it because the Crown Council and the King deemed it worthless. They left it to be torn apart by the gangs, and they couldn't care less. You've seen Tyrannium heading down the same road. Kitalphan is gone, and Orion. His voice trembles when he mentions Orion, and finally he pauses. When his eyes flash to mine, I could swear a flash of green streaks through them. When I look closer, all I see is that unfathomable gray. Everything is wrong with Orion. Everything. Let's talk about the mines for a second, shall we, Your Highness? How by a royal decree, anyone who falls out of line, doesn't pay their taxes, or just outright looks at the noble the wrong way, gets sent there. And you know what's worse? Nobody survives that place. June, No, you don't get to talk, not until you listen. I recoil from the brunt of anger, but I do as he says. Countless lives lost just to mine this substance, something powerful and dangerous that should never have been messed with in the first place. And the labs. Do you have any idea what goes on in those labs? The things they do in the name of progress? Okay, we're letting him speak here. Oh, sure, I have some water. I'm saying nothing, as it's the first time I've heard anything about labs on Orion. I heard the mines were brutal, but I couldn't possibly imagine anything worse. I should have known. I didn't really know. Experiment. Spits it out finally, his eyes dark and filled to the brim with remnants of old pain. Suddenly I understand his anger a little better, so I dread to find out how he knows so much about these places. Human trials, Tony. They strip their test subjects of all humanity, of any decency, and use them to create new weapons, new drugs, anything that will turn a profit for the crown. Anything. They say the labs are worse than the mines. Better to die with a sane mind and a poisoned lung than to waste away with needles in your veins and your mind fractured. The scientists there have no limits to what they need to do to get what they want. They don't care about anyone other than themselves, all in the name of progress. My parents, my brother. June's voice falters at that, trembling fingers fiddling with the bracelet on his right wrist. His eyes glisten with unshed tears as he's dragged into what I can only assume are his own memories. Terrified memories. My chest aches with the picture he just painted for me. So much suffering, so much pain. This is horrible. I don't know what to say. I don't think there's anything I could say. Neither of us speaks for a long while, silence settling around us like dust. His parents, his brother, what could have happened to them? It doesn't look like June is ready to talk about that. I can't help but wonder. Can't help but to give in to the weight that settles on my chest. To feel guilty for my family's role in this. For my father's. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Tony. I know it's not your fault. I know you have nothing to do with that. I don't support Zorak in the least, but it's hard for me to separate you from the Pegasi I knew. June runs a hand over his face, still struggling with something deep and dark within himself. The pain that drips from his words is enough to have me paying attention, dreading the worst. It might be best if you stay away from me, at least for now. I don't want to do anything I might regret. He backs up, like a wounded animal forced into a corner. It's obvious he's still hurting from whatever happened to him on Orion. While I want to know what it was, I can't say that now is the best time to find out. Okay, we're still going to clear options. I'm torn. Do I want to roll the dice? Do I not want to roll the dice? We'll roll the dice. Odd number first option, even number second option. Even. It's a 2. My mouth is dry. I didn't even know if I should say anything, but I can't just leave him. I had no idea. I really didn't know. I know that's not justification for anything, but stop. This mess, none of it is your fault. June steps forward as he speaks. It's hesitant, and his hand dangles at his sides, as if he doesn't know what to do with them. I'm sorry, Tony. He just needs some time. I don't want to give him time. It's selfish and stupid, but I want it to be more than to wrap my arms around him and apologize as much as he needs me to. I want to hug the pain away from him, to do something to make up for everything my family cost him. But I can't. He needs time, and I will give it to him because I respect June, because I care about him. Picking up some ancient royal train I assume I had, I managed to give him a small smile as I nod, hoping he understands what I feel, even when I'm not sure of it myself. I guess I'm happy enough knowing he's trying not to push me away. Hello, fellow mercenaries! Ioni's voice blasting through the comm snaps us out of our bubble. I come bearing a message from our dearest captain. She clears her throat exaggeratedly, and June rolls his eyes with a soft look in them. He's definitely used to her wild ways by now. Get your asses to the bridge now. This is urgent. Oh, and he says pretty please. Over and out. You should know better. I'm sorry. I've had radio training, and saying over and out is a huge thing for Pop. Because those two are mutually exclusive. You say over, you say out. You do not say both. And she should know that. As she turns up the comm, I can hear Calderon snapping at her in the background, and a smile cooks my lips for the sound. At least some things haven't changed. We should get going. Don't want to leave those two alone long enough for a fight to break out. Agreed. Sharing a smile, we set off to the bridge in a silence that's more awkward than I'd like to admit. Our conversation seems to have had brought unpleasant thoughts to the both of us. Siblings. Nerissa, June's brother. Underground now. Too many eyes around, far too dangerous for Oppo to stand out. Oppo's voice is clear and familiar when we enter the bridge. I look around to find the rest of the crew already gathered around the middle of the bridge. Calderon and Damon, each on one side of what I assume to be Oppo. The crew surrounds Oppo in holograph form, and June quickly leaves my side to join Riona and Calderon on the other side of the room. Oops. There we go. Good to hear you're safe at least. I apologize if our presence here hindered your operations. Thank you for reaching out. No problem at all. The Amaranth crew are good customers and friends. Oppo would never dream to jeopardize our relationship. Still, I took out the group of guards that were on our trail. Have you seen any others? Not yet. No, but the commotion. Damon rolls his eyes, giving the Arcnos a dry look. That was hardly a fight. He mumbles under his breath as he runs a clean cloth over his dagger, throwing Calderon a grin when the other gives him a glare. It was enough to draw attention, see? Oppo got a tip they were sending another ship to investigate, so Oppo hid somewhere safe until they leave again. And so you should, yes. Especially with your new friend. Calderon frowns at the remark, but keeps his cool nonetheless. We can't just yet. We need a CD to get away safely, and we need your help to get it. Oppo's scared expressions shift slowly into the one they had when they tried to find me for several pieces for an outrageous amount for the crew. Before the air Calderon have the chance to each say their piece, Damon already has his knife pointed right at the middle of the Arcnos' eyes, and I'm assuming they can see it because the shock on their face is real, despite the hologram. Don't fuck with us, Oppo. You're hidden, but I know very well where you are, and I wouldn't mind taking a detour before we leave. You want to make myself clear. The captain gives a short nod with his 2-second command, apparently grateful for the intervention, keeping him from having to waste any more of his time. The Arcnos swallows in his vein, their fork tongue trembling slightly outside their mouth, but Oppo ends up nodding in agreement eventually, to which Damon takes back his dagger to continue casually polishing it. There is no way of getting a CD here in Terranium now. The next shipment isn't due until the next new moon. That's a week from now. We don't have the luxury of being able to wait. Yes, I know. I swear Oppo's eyes were fixed on me as they said that. I wonder if all along they knew who I truly am. I wouldn't doubt if they did it for a second. Lucky for the Avalanche crew, I know where one is you need to go there yourself. The supplier will be expecting you. Fine, tell us where we need to go. Krisha, right next door and out of the way of any patrols that might come looking for you. It is. The mood on the bridge shifts considerably at Apple's words, and I find myself to be almost overwhelmed at the change. But a canary stronghold nonetheless. Calderon was bothered by the idea, as if it's something he'd rather avoid entirely. June and Riona next to him look equally concerned about our apparent next destination. On the other hand, Damon looks like just by prey he'd been hunting for eons and is preparing to pounce. It's his home planet, and yet there isn't an inch of joy in his expression, only stark determination. Aya and Bash next to him seem concerned, though more for Damon than about our destination. I'll send the details of the contact, and you let her know Apple sent you, yes? Her? I wonder. Thank you, Apple. We'll stay in touch. The captain all but hangs up on the Arcnos, turning to Bash and Ayame and giving his orders, sending Bash off to the engine room to make sure they're ready to go, and telling Aya to set the course. It seems he wants to leave as soon as possible to get this ordeal over and done with. Okay. I don't think it really matters which one you talk to, so odd number Calderon, even number Damon. That's the four, so we're talking to Damon. The second command approaches me. He steps light and precise, a twisted smile on his face. Oh, this will be so much fun. Obviously, it's about time you earn your dues, but given your penchant for wandering on your own, don't think we'll be able to let you roam around freely this time, so I guess we'll have to babysit. His eyes turn serious after verbally jabbing at me, paying me to spot with cold, sharp eyes. This isn't going to be a fun ride. Don't think Terranium was the worst Heliota had to offer. Don't lay your guard down when we get there. But you said it will be fun. A stupid remark, I realize. Perhaps the weight of it all is finally starting to get to me, and I'm losing it. Perhaps I just want to see how serious he is about Cursa being, well, cursed. For me, it will. After all, I'm going home. Something about the way he says it makes me want to hole up in my room and stay there until we're done with Cursa. But I can't. I won't. I'll make myself peaceful. This time, I won't go off on my own. The captain's deep voice is amplified, echoing around the room and the rest of the ship as he speaks into the comm device from the co-pilot's seat. Everyone to your stations. We're heading to Cursa. Dun dun dun. Okay. So that's it for chapter 3. Whoop! Damn it. Dropped it. Where'd it go? And getting ready for chapter 4. Okay. Detected Cursa. Okay, so that's it for today. Whew. I need the break. My voice is very tired. And yeah, so we're playing the heir to the royal throne. We're the only survivor of an attack on our family. And so that means we have the strongest claim to the throne itself, a throne we never thought we'd end up having. But we don't necessarily have to make that claim. So that's an interesting option. So we're getting close. There's 2 more chapters after this. I won't even say what the chapter after Cursa is, because that will give the game away. But we've heard about everyone's backgrounds. We've gotten lots of backstory. And yeah, I don't know when the next chapter will be out. I know they're working on it, but no indications yet if it's ready. So yeah, I will see you next week. Take care, everyone.